Welcome back to Pokémon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 389, Showdown at Linoon. The episode begins with Ash and the gang on a boat yet again, heading for Pacific Log Town for May's next contest. On the boat, Ash was admiring his full collection of 8 badges, and we saw them all in his badge case, and Ash exclaimed how he couldn't wait to get into the Hoenn League, knowing that he would have to train as best as he could to ensure that he could win the league so all his badges didn't go to waste. May admitted that Ash certainly did well, and she wished to do as well in her final contest so that she could get her final ribbon before the grand festival in Pacific Log. And went on and on about how excited she was for the contest as the ship continued on and eventually made it to an island known as Gibbon Island. The first place that Ash and the gang went to on the island was, of course, its Pokemon Center, not only to rest, but because Ash wanted to report to Professor Oak via the computer in the Pokemon Center. Ash immediately informed Oak that he had just gotten all 8 badges and was planning to enter the Hoenn League, and Oak was delighted, albeit a bit surprised, to hear about this, admitting that he was surprised because he didn't expect Ash to get the badges this soon. Oak then said that he knew that as soon as he told all the other Palatown residents, especially Ash's mom, they would throw a goddamn party. He's happy for Ash, although Professor Oak also reminded Ash he has to train really hard for the league and not underestimate his opponents if he wished to win, which Ash promised to do, declaring that he was going to go train immediately. Oak was glad Ash was taking initiative and promised that he and all of Palatown, as well as Ash's mom obviously, would cheer him on during the Evergrande Conference, and with that, Ash logged off. As did Oak. So Ash and the gang decided to make a little campsite on the island to have a little training day. And once the campsite was made, Ash ran away to go train, telling Brock that he only has 3 months and he had to make the most of the training. And he was just too anxious about losing if he didn't train to just sit there and do nothing. Pikachu wanted to train as well, so that was the last straw. He and Pikachu ran off. And Brock wished him luck. May decided that if Ash was going to go train, she should be sure to train for her upcoming contest as well, so as to not fall behind to Ash. And she started to get excited about her upcoming contest, since she knew that if she won, she would qualify for the Hoenn Grand Festival, and that motivated her to get some training in. Though before she actually trained, she decided to clean and polish all her Pokeballs first. While she was doing this, with Max and Brock observing, there was actually something else observing as well, hiding in a bush. Once May had cleaned all of her Pokeballs, she puts them back into her bag, admiring her polishing job, and putting them back one by one. She put Combustions back first, and then Skitties, and went to go grab Bulbasaur's, but she looked at the table that she had her Pokeballs on, and suddenly, it seemed as though she got distracted when she was actually polishing the Pokeballs, because she didn't notice before that Bulbasaur and Beautyfly's Pokeballs were gone, even though she had just polished them. She lifted up the napkin she placed them on to see if they fell underneath, but they didn't, so she understandably started to freak out and frantically looked around, bending down to try and find the Pokeballs maybe underneath the table she was at or something, but she still couldn't find them. Max and Brock were startled by May's sudden outburst, and asked what was wrong, so May explained. And Max instantly suspected that it must have been Team Rocket who took the Pokemon. Unbeknownst to May, Max, and Brock, Team Rocket was spying on them from some bushes, and were startled when they suddenly heard May freak out. And they eventually heard that Brock and Max were blaming them, and heard May blame them as well. And James got sad at this, crying, and he got angry at the fact that May, Max, and Brock would think that they would steal something. Basically angry because James wanted to be known as a thief who stole more elegantly or with cool machines, not just out of nowhere. And James started to cry at the fact that they hadn't actually stolen anything, because he really did want to steal something, but just in a cool way. As for Jessie, she was just happy to have been blamed for the theft, because it showed that Ash and the gang always had Team Rocket on their minds, no matter what, and that was one of Jessie's goals, to intimidate their enemies. Anyways, back with Max, May, and Brock, Max noticed some footprints around the picnic table that May was sitting at. Somehow, May didn't notice them, likely because she was panicking too much. And therefore, Max, May, and Brock concluded that whatever made those footprints must have been the culprit that took the Pokeballs. So, May, Max, and Brock decided to follow the footprints into the forest in hopes of finding the culprit, with May declaring that she was going to show that thief some payback. And they continued to follow the footprints as they eventually led down a path. Meanwhile, back with Ash and Pikachu, they had finally found a good spot, which was actually further down this same path to train, and Ash was about to send out a Pokemon to start training, but heard something stampeding towards him, and before he and Pikachu could react, the thing that was charging towards him, a Pokemon named Linoon, sent him and Pikachu flying away. Obviously, Ash and Pikachu were confused, and as Pikachu tended to a little bump on the back of its head that it got as a result of falling, Ash saw the Linoon and scanned it with his Pokedex to learn more about it. The Pokedex mentioned that Linoon was very fast, and this was confirmed as Linoon ran off extremely fast. Although, as Ash continued to observe it running away, he noted that it seemed even faster than how the Pokedex described, and it ran so fast that it broke the pass handrail in the process, because it was just so fast its speed just like reverberated off of the handrails. With Linoon gone, Ash now realized that upon seeing the Linoon's face, its face was fatter than the one in the Pokedex as well. He was about to shrug this off and just get back up and train, but before he did, a foot landed on his back. Leading May, the person who accidentally stepped on Ash, causing his foot to go on his back, to turn around in surprise. She was basically in such a hurry running down the path to go after the thief that she wasn't watching where she was going and ran over Ash in the process. Max and Brock then approached as well, and while they'd been walking behind May, Max had come to the conclusion that the thief was actually a Pokemon after analyzing the footprints, so Max asked Ash if he saw a Pokemon run by, and Ash confirmed that he saw a Linoon with puffy cheeks run by. This led May to immediately come to the conclusion that the Linoon must have been the one who stole Beautyfly and Bulbasaur's Pokeballs. Ash was obviously confused as to what was going on, so Brock explained the situation to him, and Ash asked May if she was sure if it was really a Linoon with puffy cheeks that stole her Pokeballs, because when he saw the Linoon, it didn't have any Pokeballs with it, and Ash imitated the face of a Linoon with puffy cheeks, which pissed May off, because this face was very ugly, and she just said that even though she didn't see the Linoon for a fact, she was confident that it had to have been the one that took her Pokeballs. Ash didn't want to make May more angry than necessary, so he simply acknowledged what she said and agreed to help her get her Pokeballs back and find the Linoon. Although they wondered how they were supposed to find the Linoon when they didn't know where it went, when Brock remembered learning in one of his guidebooks that Linoon usually only ran in a straight line, and Max confirmed this because he had heard it in a guidebook he read as well. So, with that, Ash, Brock, May, and Max followed a straight path, with May determined to teach Linoon a lesson for stealing the Pokeballs. Eventually, after following the footprints, Ash and the gang were led to a house, where the footprints came to an end. This led Ash, Brock, and Max to come to the conclusion that the house must have belonged to the Linoon's trainer, but May claimed that no trainer would ever catch this Linoon, and it was probably just acting on its own and might have lived in the house by itself. Right as Ash and the gang entered, we then cut to an empty room that was empty aside from a boy who was sitting inside, and he threw an empty, already battered Pokeball across the room, making it hit the wall. It was then that Ash and the gang appeared, and Ash asked the boy if he had seen a Linoon nearby recently, and May explained that it had taken her Pokeballs. The boy was quite upset by this and introduced himself as Kimmy and apologized profusely, admitting that the Linoon that took May's Pokeballs was his, nicknamed Token, and it apparently always was up to no good, including constantly stealing Pokeballs. Just then, Kimmy's parents, Corbin and Harmony, with the last name Shoney, having heard their son crying, enter the room and greet Ash and the gang, introducing themselves and asking if they could assist with anything. Ash and the gang introduce themselves back, and Ash explains the situation with May's Pokeballs and apparently Kimmy's Linoon, and Kimmy confirms that his Linoon was apparently added again, implying that it had caused trouble many times before. And Kimmy takes Ash and the gang to a little shed that contained an abundance of various round objects to prove that his Linoon had caused trouble before. Ash and the gang was surprised at the sheer number of items, and sure enough, Kimmy explained that his Linoon had brought all these items. There was a whole bunch of shit. Fruits, vegetables, vases, globes, tea kettles, balls, microphones. Max was immensely surprised at the fact that a single Linoon could have gathered all this, and Kimmy then explained through a flashback that back when his Linoon token was a Zigzagoon, he often played fetch with it using its Pokeball. So he would basically throw its Pokeball for it to retrieve. Everything was perfectly normal when Zigzagoon would fetch as a Zigzagoon, but once it evolved into a Linoon, it began to love fetching so much that it became obsessed with it, and it would play fetch just constantly, bringing back any round object it could find. Even if Kimmy didn't even throw it, it would just go anywhere it could find round objects, including May's Pokeballs, and bring them back to Kimmy, who would then store the items in the family shed, because he didn't know how to get them back to their original trainers, explaining that, yes, Linoon stole from a whole bunch of trainers, not just May. And Kimmy tried to explain to Token, his Linoon, that stealing was wrong, and he only wanted Linoon to bring back the ball that he actually threw back, not just any random round item. But Linoon didn't seem to understand, and started to just hoard other people's items. Upon hearing about how Linoon was disobeying Kimmy, Ash brought up his Charizard, saying that his Charizard used to misbehave, although he confidently said that Charizard was over that little phase now. Kimmy asked how he got his Charizard to suddenly obey him, with Ash just saying it took a lot of trying and a lot of getting closer to Charizard as time went on, and the final thing he did was show that he himself worked as hard as Charizard did. So basically, Charizard thought that Ash was a loser and didn't put enough effort into battles, but once Ash put effort in to save him, then Charizard warmed up to him. Using Max to joke that even if Charizard warmed up to him, that might not have meant that Charizard respected him, since Charizard could have just used Flamethrower on him to warm him up. Get it? Max made a bad pun? Yeah, Ash was kind of pissed off by this bad pun. But anyways, Brock stopped Max and Ash's inevitable argument by bringing the topic of conversation specifically back to Kenny and Token, saying that Kenny and Token just needed more time to learn to appreciate each other, just like how Ash and Charizard needed time. While this conversation was going on, May had been searching through all of the items in the shed, assuming that her Pokeballs would be in there. But, much to her surprise, she cried out in despair at the fact that her Pokeballs were not in the pile, wondering where her Pokeballs could have went, until Kimmy stated that Linoon sometimes liked to hide stuff in the surrounding forest clearings by their house, or even up in the mountains. So, without further ado, Ash and the gang, Kimmy and Kimmy's parents went out to the forest and the mountains to search, although when Ash and the gang looked around the area, they started to panic, realizing that Linoon could have put May's Pokeballs anywhere in the forest or the mountain, and the mountain and forest were both huge, so searching would take a very long time. But Corbin, Kimmy's father, comforted May by assuring her that everyone would help search and they would find her Pokeballs eventually, and May thanked Corbin for the support, and everyone started searching. Particularly, everyone searched in some bushes and tree hollows, with Pikachu and Max searching together, and Brock and May searching together, and Ash and Kimmy searching together, and Kimmy's parents were searching together, when suddenly Harmony spotted something shining inside a crack in a tree stump, and she pulled out a ring. revealing it to be hers since she had lost it long ago. So both she and Corbin were very, very happy to have recovered the ring, and they immediately started dancing, reliving the memory of when Corbin first gave Harmony her ring, and going over all the memories that they had with it, since the ring had a lot of value to them. And they claimed that this ring meant so much to them that now that Harmony had hers again, it felt like they had just found their peak love again. Not that they were falling out of love, but it just made them remember why they fell in love with each other in the first place. Kimmy, who had split off from Ash, walked by, and seeing his parents dancing, he got a little embarrassed. Meanwhile, as Pikachu was searching, it looked into another tree stump and cheered, having found something. They heard these cheers and ran over, thinking Pikachu finally found Beautifly and Bulbasaur's Pokeballs, but instead, Pikachu places a bone in her hand, which made May fucking terrified and juggles it like it was a hot potato, thinking that like it was a bone of a dead thing or some shit. As May screamed, Ash and Brock heard her and came over to find out what was wrong, and Ash takes the bone, interested in where it came from, not worried about the fact that it could have been from a dead thing. Just then, Max came up and instantly recognized the bone as belonging to a Cubone or a Marowak, saying that it was known as a thick club and it enhanced the strength of Cubone and Marowak. And we see a little vision of Cubone and Marowak destroying the rock with their clubs and the bones. Anyways, Pikachu points at the stump's hole again and says something, indicating that it had spotted yet another item, and cheered once again. Ash knew that there had to be something else inside of the tree stump, and sure enough, when he reached in, he pulled out a little bell that Max was able to identify as a Soothe Bell, which makes a Pokemon able to deal stronger and more efficient attacks, and just more attacks in general. Pikachu still doesn't shut up, indicating that there was more to be found, and he finally does shut up when Brock reaches in and pulls out an item which Max identifies as a Dragon Fang, which was apparently good for a Pokemon that used Dragon-type attacks, and basically, it would make them stronger. Brock was kind of impressed at Linoon with the fact that it was able to find such rare items, since the Soothe Bell, Dragon Fang, and a ring, of all things, in addition to a thick club, were extremely rare items. May cut Brock off, though, crying in despair at the fact that, despite finding all these rare items, her fucking Pokeballs hadn't been found yet. Although Brock tried to reassure May that they would find her Pokeballs, promising that they would, and he continues on with what he was saying before, having come to the conclusion that Linoon had been able to find a whole bunch of items because of its pickup ability. Although Brock admitted that he was kind of intrigued by this specific Linoon, since usually the pickup ability only allowed you to pick up relatively random or unimportant items, but this Linoon was picking up a whole bunch of rare items, and Brock looked in the stump again to further prove his point. There were a whole bunch of other rare items in there, such as a King's Rock, another thick club, a blue shard, a stick, a fluffy tail, a deep scale, 2 deep sea teeth, a deep sea scale, and even more items, including far-fetched leak. So yeah, Token definitely found more rare items than your average Linoon, that was for sure. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, they had been listening from some nearby bushes using some listening equipment, and they were delighted to hear of this Linoon's ability to find extremely valuable things, and James suggests that they should steal it for Giovanni, since it could probably find a whole bunch of cool items to bring to him. Upon hearing this, Meowth had one of his regular boss fantasies of Linoon constantly finding new presents, even gift-wrapped, for Giovanni that had a whole bunch of rare items in it, and then immediately leaving to go find more presents, and the process would repeat until Giovanni was up to his goddamn head in presents. And because of this, Team Rocket all cheered, determined to catch this Linoon for themselves, so that they could get a goddamn promotion from Giovanni. And Wobbuffet popped up his Pokeball to cheer as well. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, Kimmy and his parents, they were still searching for May's Pokeballs, with Max, May, Brock, Ash, and Kimmy all searching through individual bushes, and Kimmy's parents barely even searching at all, because they were still distracted by the ring they found earlier, and they were still dancing because of it. We then cut to a cliff above everyone, where we actually see Token with May's 2 Pokeballs in its mouth. Damn, it has balls in its mouth. Anyways, it was watching as Ash and the gang and Kimmy were searching, when suddenly, Kimmy spotted Token, and alerted Token's presence to Ash and the gang as well, along with his parents, who came running back. Realizing that the reason why Token's cheeks were so big was because the 2 Pokeballs were inside of its cheeks, Kimmy called for Linoon to give the Pokeballs back to May, trying to explain that May needed them back, but Linoon refused to give them back and turned around to walk away, when suddenly, as Linoon snarled, utterly refusing to give back the Pokeballs as it walked away, it suddenly got caught in a net, startling everyone. As they questioned where the net came from, only to find out that it came from none other than Team Rocket and their Meowth balloon, who'd said their motto, doing a space theme this time, with Trimeco and Wobbuffet also joining in, declaring how they were gonna steal Token. Ash and the gang demanded that Team Rocket give back Token, but Team Rocket said that Token was a criminal anyways, stealing all those rare items, so it was more fit to be with Team Rocket, and they start to fly away and make their escape. Kimmy refuses to let them get away with Token, though, so he desperately climbs up the cliff, going after them, demanding that they give Token back. Although Jessie obviously refuses, as Team Rocket continues flying away, and Jessie sends out Viper to use haze, which obscures Kimmy's vision, preventing him from walking any further, as he cringes from how rough the smoke was, and it made him cough and shit, and this caused him to step back and lose his footing, and fall down the cliff. And since he couldn't see any rocks to grab onto because of the smoke, he continued to plummet downwards. Ash screams out in fear that something bad would happen to Kimmy, and this scares the Token, who cries out as well, dropping the 2 Pokeballs out of its mouth in surprise. Kimmy then falls down to the ground, decently injured, and his 2 parents rush to his side immediately to try and comfort him. Thankfully for May, the Pokeballs that Linoon had dropped landed next to her, and they were hers, so she happily picked them up. May was about to thank Token for releasing the two Pokeballs, even if it was done unintentionally, but Ash reminds her that Token was currently being taken away by Team Rocket in their Meowth balloon, so Ash and May focus their attention on Team Rocket, and when they still refuse to give Token back, Ash sends Pikachu to go help Token and go rescue it from the net, so Pikachu obliges, starting to run up the cliff so that he could try and reach Team Rocket's balloon. James saw this and knew he had to stop Pikachu from getting to them, sending out his Cacnea, who of course hugged him first. Since Cacnea was so busy doing this allowed Pikachu to use Iron Tail to cut the net from the Meowth balloon, freeing Linoon. Even though Linoon was free from the net though, it started to fall towards the ground since the Meowth balloon was in the air. And Kimmy, who had just regained consciousness, saw this and somehow managed to work up the strength to get the fuck back up and run towards Linoon, trying to save it, even though his parents called to him, warning him that he was still injured. During this, Pikachu was almost attacked by Seviper using Poison Tail, but Pikachu was able to dodge just in time and jumps onto Seviper's head, though only after jumping back to avoid several more Poison Tails. Seviper tried desperately to shake Pikachu off of its head, but Pikachu hangs on as best as it can. Meanwhile, unfortunately, Token had fallen to the ground, but Kimmy was able to rush up to it immediately after this, and after comforting it and hugging it, Token managed to recover from its injuries for the most part, and Kimmy and Token had a tearful reunion, because Token now felt bad for stealing May's Pokeballs, now that Kimmy had tried to save it. Basically, they were on good terms again. Yay! Pikachu then uses a Thunderbolt on Seviper, which knocks Seviper into the Meowth balloon. And Seviper was still being shocked during this, so Seviper ended up shocking Team Rocket as well, and also exploding their Meowth balloon, leaving Ash and Pikachu to cheer in happiness and amazement. Team Rocket was hopefully blasted off now. However, when the smoke from the explosion cleared, it's revealed that Team Rocket actually didn't blast off, but as Team Rocket laughed and bragged, they revealed that they actually had implemented some upgrades in their Meowth balloon, such as having a second balloon in case the first one exploded. It was still the same basket, but it was just a different balloon, and this time it was shaped like a Pokeball. Team Rocket then decides to focus their efforts on Pikachu, since, they might as well, and Meowth hits a button in the Meowth balloon that deploys another net, this time capturing Pikachu inside, as Team Rocket then fly away with it. And everyone freaks out in fear, though Ash tries not to get scared and runs up the cliff after it, just like Kimmy had with his Linoon. Team Rocket cheers, taunting that Ash would never catch up to them, as Pikachu struggled in the net, trying to escape, but it couldn't, and unfortunately, Ash couldn't catch up either, because the balloon was too far away. Ash stood there hopelessly when Max, Brock, May, Kimmy, his parents, and Token approached, and Kimmy immediately apologized to Ash, believing that it was his and Token's fault that Pikachu had been taken, since if Pikachu hadn't tried to save Token, then Pikachu would never have been taken in the first place. But Ash simply comforted Kimmy by telling him not to worry and not blame himself, saying Pikachu's been caught by Team Rocket many times before. It was basically inevitable, no matter what happened with Kimmy and Token, and he promised Kimmy that he would do everything in his power to get Pikachu back, and this gave him the motivation to continue chasing after Team Rocket. And quickly add that. Just then, Token gets distracted as it finally notices Team Rocket's Meowth balloon shaped like a Pokeball, and this causes it to remember the Pokeball that Kimmy would always throw to it when they would play fetch, and it remembered the games of fetch it would play as a Zigzagoon. And we then see through this memory that the Pokeball that was all like rough and destroyed that Kimmy threw at the wall was because it used to be the one that Token would play fetch with. So while Linoon jumped up the cliff, jumping several gaps along the way, Brock realizes that the Pokeball balloon reminded Token of playing with Kimmy, and concludes that Token wanted to get this Pokeball too, adding that since it was naturally drawn to round objects because of playing fetch, it definitely wanted to go after Team Rocket's balloon. Kimmy then admitted that he hadn't been playing fetch with it nearly as often since it evolved into Linoon, but back when it was a Zigzagoon, he definitely constantly played with it, so that definitely explained its love for round objects. Brock, upon hearing that Kimmy barely played with it anymore because it evolved into a Linoon, realized that Linoon kept going after round things because he was feeling neglected and felt the need to go after them himself. So even if Kimmy, so it would both go after any round objects that were related to Kimmy and any other ones as well, such as May's Pokeballs that weren't even related to Kimmy playing fetch with it at all. It was just naturally drawn to these objects now and felt the need to get them itself. Kimmy reasoned that the reason why he stopped playing fetch with it quite a bit was because Linoon actually felt content going after objects by itself as well. Although Brock noted that even though it went after objects on its own, that didn't mean that Kimmy should have stopped playing with it, since even if a Pokemon acted differently upon evolving, it still liked their trainer a lot. Basically, Linoon still loved Kimmy. He just wanted to get objects on its own as well. Maybe it even wanted to bring all these back to Kimmy without even being asked to fetch, because it liked Kimmy so much. Kimmy finally realized how much Token loved him, and asked Ash if it would be okay if he and Token teamed up to try and regain their bond and strengthen it, so that Kimmy could apologize in a way to Token, and Kimmy thought that he and Token could strengthen their bond by saving Pikachu together, and Ash told Kimmy to go for it. Kimmy's parents were overjoyed to see Kimmy running, trying to catch up to Linoon, just like he used to catch up to Zigzagoon, and eventually Kimmy made it relatively close to Token, who had stopped on the edge of the cliff, doubting itself that it had enough strength and speed to even make it to the balloon, but Kimmy gave Token the confidence boost it needed by telling it to go get that ball, like it did when they played fetch, and this gave Linoon added confidence and energy as it happily nodded. and seeing Kimmy pointing to the balloon, it ran up to the balloon and managed to go to the top of the cliff and gathered up momentum to jump far enough to reach the Meowth balloon, well, technically the Pokeball balloon, landing on top of it. A naive Jessie and James were initially excited seeing that Linoon was on their balloon because they thought that maybe they wanted to come with them, but Meowth warned Jessie and James that he was actually trying to stop them and pop the balloon. So James tells Cacnea, who was still out of his Pokeball, along with Viper and Chimecho, to use Needle on Linoon. Just as Meowth warned that would be a bad idea, and it certainly turned out to be, because Token, the Linoon, was able to dodge the attack, so the Needle hit the balloon instead, popping it and sending the balloon plummeting towards the ground. As Team Rocket freaked out, right before the Meowth balloon landed, Linoon quickly jumped onto Pikachu's net and used its claws to slash the net open, freeing Pikachu, but the balloon then crashed onto the ground, creating a huge dust cloud. But thankfully, Linoon and Pikachu were okay, as Linoon and Pikachu had apparently jumped off of the balloon right before it hit the ground. Just then, Ash and Kimmy rush up to Token and Pikachu and reunite with them happily, and hug their Pokemon. Kimmy also promises to play with Token more often from now on. Kimmy's parents and May, Brock, and Max catch up, and they look on happily, seeing the two trainers and their Pokemon reunited. Suddenly, this happy moment was interrupted as everyone heard some yelling, and the dust from the balloon crashing then cleared to reveal Jessie and Meowth beating up James, who was screaming, and Jessie and Meowth were screaming at James, blaming him for using Needle Arm and accidentally blowing up the balloon. Jessie then notices Ash and the gang, though, and focuses her attention on them, declaring that they were going to get Pikachu back for real, and has Viper go to attack with Poison Tail. And James, trying to make up for his little mishap, tells Cacnea to go for a Needle Arm and actually hit either Pikachu or Linoon this time. Kimmy, however, tells Linoon to use a Water Pulse to stop the attacks. Ash was impressed that Linoon could use a water attack, but Kimmy said that that wasn't the coolest part. Water Pulse could also confuse the opponent, and sure enough, when the Water Pulse made contact, it not only severely damaged Viper and Cacnea, but also confused them, and they started to attack each other, using a Poison Tail and Needle Arm on each other, as opposed to Pikachu and Linoon. Jessie was furious, asking what the fuck was going on, leaving James to explain about what Water Pulse was capable of, knowing it from some of those weird fucking Pokemon cards that he tended to read recently. Jessie then yelled at Cacnea and Viper, telling them how fucking stupid they were for attacking each other and not Pikachu and Linoon, and this makes the confused Viper and Cacnea angry as they attack their trainers opposites. So Cacnea doesn't attack James, but instead Jessie with a pin missile, and it soon actually attacks James as well. So it just attacks Jessie and James, and Viper starts off by only using a haze on James, but it eventually attacks Jessie with haze as well. Also attacking Wobbuffet and Chimecho. Seeing how Team Rocket couldn't fight back, Ash suggested to Kimmy that the two of them team up to send Team Rocket blasting off, and Kimmy and Token agreed. So Pikachu used Thunderbolt, and much to Ash's surprise, Token used Thunderbolt as well, since it was not only able to learn a water attack, but also an electric attack as well. And as a result, Team Rocket went blasting off, and Ash and Kimmy congratulated their Pokemon. And Ash also told Linoon how cool it was they could learn electric and water attacks. And both Pikachu and Linoon cheered. With Team Rocket gone, Ash and the gang, Kimmy and his parents, returned to Kimmy's house, along with Token. Kimmy then admitted that, deep down, one of the reasons why he didn't play with Token when it evolved into a Linoon was because he was scared that Token wouldn't like him once it evolved, but now he realized otherwise, so he promised to play with Token more often from now on, so Token would not feel compelled to steal from other people, and Token also reassured Linoon that he didn't want Linoon to go stealing from other people. Kimmy's parents then thank Ash and the gang for helping Kimmy, although Ash and the gang rebutted that Kimmy did all the work himself. He just needed a little bit of motivation to realize that his Linoon actually still cared for him. Kimmy then did as he promised, as he took out the old battered Pokeball from earlier and threw it, telling Linoon to go fetch. Well, Ash and the gang and Kimmy's parents watch happily as Kimmy indeed fetches the Pokeball. Once this was done, Ash and the gang say their goodbyes to Kimmy and his parents and Token and head off, with Ash excited for the Hollow League and May excited for her contest in Pacific Log, and Kimmy and Token bonding some more as they continue to fetch.